Welcome everybody, and thanks for joining us again for another episode of Unfiltered. I'm John Marchant from KipperTie. My colleague Bryce Munn is with me again. And yeah, today, maybe not getting quite as techie as last time. We geeked out over some manufacturing stuff.
Just a bit.
Yeah.
Very in-depth last time, which was interesting.
No, it's kind of what I want to do with these things is take the opportunity to get into the detail that otherwise you have to gloss over, because I know a lot of our customers, a lot of the audience that we have, and a lot of our peers in the filmmaking world as well, you're all geeks, a lot of you. You need to know the detail, I know. So yeah, it's nice to be able to share that in a nice kind of informal way. So just to get started, the first thing I wanted to talk about is where we're at with Strata Electro right now. I feel terrible. We've been kicking the ball away down the line every so often here. And I wouldn't say that we're in development hell. I've seen stuff take an awful lot longer. We're only a year into a project really, which is pretty reasonable. We just try to be super ambitious and go fast. Right now, we are very close to the finish line, but we hit a stumbling block with a batch of glass that arrived. So I don't know how much people understand the manufacturing process. Obviously, although we're a manufacturer, we don't literally make everything here. I mean, you see how much we do.
A hell of a lot.
Yeah. I mean,
it's fair to say all final assembly happens in this room, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we build stuff, but obviously we can't have every technological piece of equipment on hand. And coating glass, which is integral to what we do in a lot of our products, is something that requires lab-like settings. It's not something that we can do here. And as is often the case, I've talked about this before, I push in terms of the spec. And we reached a gold sample, as far as I was concerned, a small batch of glass, which we'd done all the tests, we're happy with everything, and we'd said, yeah, go for it. This is what we want. And unfortunately, our supplier then had real trouble achieving it in volume. And it's not about any sort of technical overall inability. It's just that sometimes when you transition from prototyping to production, you use different equipment, you use different processes. Sometimes you find, it's not about lack of attention to detail. Actually, sometimes it's just about the fact that in prototyping, you are just working in different environments, different sizes of equipment and that kind of thing. So what we found was basically a bit of a nightmare, really. A batch of glass arrived and we were looking at it thinking, this hasn't met the spec. And our supplier was very honest with us, told us that they were having trouble. What do you want to do? And I said, well, of course, we need to look at it as well. We'll make a decision based off of that. And yeah, I mean, they are standing by the work that they have done and said, yeah, we will make this right. And that's essential for us. We've got a great relationship with suppliers like that. We give them the time they need. We don't just crack the whip and say, got to get it out the door. But sometimes it means that we have to delay. What we are doing is this kind of goes on talking about manufacturing principles again. I don't like having one source for any given item. It's great to be able to have diversity in the supply chain. So we have a parallel track that was intended for if the product moved into higher volumes. We had a parallel track for the production of the glass. So I've pulled the emergency chain on that one and said, hey guys, can you accelerate that process? So it's really frustrating. We could gloss over it and say, well, it's within a couple of % of what we wanted. But that's not the product.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not us. So yeah, it's very frustrating. We've got a situation where we're basically signed off as far as all the electronics and firmware is concerned. We're
Brilliant.
actually ahead of target. We had initially said that we weren't going to launch with iData enabled.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
So I mean, as of just recently, that's up and running. We're pleased about that. There will still be some tack-on stuff in terms of remote control, but the delay effectively means that some of the lagging features will have caught up by the time we're shipping in volume. But yeah, I mean, literally under the table that we're sat at right here, we actually store a lot of final assembly parts. And
I have no idea what.
What are you going to get there? Who knows? You got an empty one. Yeah,
an empty box. There we go. The lucky dip of products.
The way. But yeah, I mean,
we're going to be in trouble for messing up this.
Yeah, exactly. We mustn't touch this stuff. We get told off by the products team. But yeah, we're sat on a lot of stock components there. We've tried to order ahead, try to get things up and running.
And how about the assembly process? Because I know a lot of thought goes into actually designing that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, we've talked about this in terms of, what you design is the machine to build the machine. You're one step back. And that is true. But also, I mean, for example, Fiona on our team is actively engaged at the moment in documenting the build process. It's something that she's done before. Some stuff that was in existence before she joined the company. She was handed over the notes on this is how you do stuff.
Yeah.
And she's now taken up the baton and said, okay, I'm going to document this. We've actually been using an Atlassian product, Confluence, as an online hub, a wiki, effectively, for the documentation of how that process goes, and that's been interesting because some of that stuff was relatively old-fashioned. We have binders with paper documents, and that's.
I mean, like a lot of manufacturers, we started with a very simple product, right? So that was sufficient.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean,
Strata Electro is not simple.
That's not. It's not really comparable at all. And when you start out on this journey, you might have a product that has about 10 parts in it, and you can do things very simply. We have obviously grown along the way and tried to figure out how do we best handle this stuff. And one of the things is stock control, making sure that we're able to fulfill orders, and that gets from what seems like very simple, do you have an item on the shelf? That cascades into hundreds and hundreds of subcomponents. So Anita, another member of the team who normally sits behind us, she's taken the form of a screensaver today.
Appears to have been replaced by Mango. I don't know that's showing up on camera, but
I mean, she is integral again to the process because she's constantly checking component stock, ordering components in, and managing that process with the team to say, okay, what's the anticipated demand? How much stock do we need to have? I mean, honestly, it's a totally different position to what we had not even that long ago, where we were struggling to fulfill orders on a daily, weekly basis. We're now able to plan that stuff much further ahead. And generally speaking, our shipping times are actually pretty good now. It's.
So how's that planning going for Strata Electro?
For Strata Electro, right now we have heavily populated spreadsheets full of what could be people's orders,
Brilliant.
Which is lovely, but intensely frustrating when it's just a core, central, relatively low part count item. It feels like the glass is, yes, it's essential. Yes, it's central to the product, and it's like the core tech.
Yeah.
But it's also only a handful of pieces inside a product containing, like I say, dozens and dozens and dozens of other parts.
Yeah.
So for it to be the hold up is galling at this point. But also, like I say, it's we appreciate that our products are about no compromise when it comes to addressing the cinema market. So
ultimately, that is the heart of the product. It might be
a few absolutely,
but it is the component that everything else is built around.
Yeah,
right?
that's it. And I'm probably guilty of obsessing over some finer details that maybe don't matter as much. But that's not the case here. It's I think it's the right choice to be making. I still we are still expecting that we'll be opening the order books before Christmas and be able to have a firm and fixed kind of schedule for shipping beyond that because of the amount of pre-work that we've done. We'll be able to get moving really quite effectively.
So for those of you out there wanting to buy it as a gift for somebody,
exactly.
It'll be ready for the stocking.
Maybe not quite. Maybe the order will be. No, we'll be.
Vouchers?
Don't give me ideas. No, honestly, we really appreciate the way our customers are able to ride things out with us. Sometimes we don't try to ask too much of everybody. We do accept pre-orders when we have products that we know are going to be, it's just a procedural function to build it and get it out of the door. I'm really aware, painfully aware in terms of products I've tried to purchase myself, that there is a growing trend of vaporware products, things that are announced that never come to fruition, and or that just appear, as prototypes in the hands of influencers and never really hit the market properly.
I think it's fair to say, from my observation, from what I see from my side of the room, you do a lot of work before even announcing or even hinting at announcing. There's a lot of groundwork and a lot of proof of concept already laid down, right?
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes that's hard for me to remember, because I will show somebody something, and of course it's been in my head for months, years, and stuff's been churning away, and we've been through. So, and sometimes that's a source of frustration, because somebody will look at it and instantly have feedback, which is great. Really, but it's like, I have been thinking about this solidly for 6 months. Yes, there's a reason that it is this way. And that's another reason why it's great to be able to talk to people a bit like this, because I feel like if somebody has a question, at least they'll have been able to see the honest chat about a thought process first, rather than just looking at a picture on a web page and going, well, I wouldn't have done it like that. That's no good. Who wants that?
These things often go, and we've spoken about before, haven't we, the layers of compromise that go into this.
Yes, exactly. Engineering is compromise, basically, and it is a success to get a compromise that fits in the right places. So that's about where we are. Like I say, we're expecting to be accepting pre-orders before Christmas and shipping not long after. We have a singular hold-up, which is also incredibly core to the process. And like I say, we have the gold standard samples. We know it's doable. We know everything works. And then, sometimes it is. I mean, I felt terrible years back. Red found themselves in a position like this with the Dragon sensor when they wanted to produce the VistaVision version of it. Ultimately, that became Monstro, an entirely different sensor fabbed in a different place in a different way. I mean, they literally found themselves in a position where it could not be produced with the yield that they needed. And they had to completely about face. At least in this scenario, it's not quite that length of time in terms of waiting for the thing to pop out of the oven, almost literally, but it is still a real substantial period of time and investment and effort. So when, the magical reveal happens and the stuff comes out of the coating chambers and it hasn't worked the way it's supposed to, it's deeply frustrating for our suppliers and for us. But such is life. We move on. So putting that one to bed for the moment, I'm going to have a bit of a complete shift actually in terms of the market that we're talking about and products that we're talking about. We've got something new to talk about here.
Very exciting.
Which is fun. All I'm going to show just quickly, because at the moment this is, for us, having said we'd like to keep things close to our chest and then announce, this is relatively early days. All of the tech is proven and everything, is solid. And the R&D side of things is covered. I don't have physical prototypes to show, so I'm going to jump to some renders to have a quick look at here. So something that is targeted at much more of a mass market prosumer kind of usage. There are lots of people out there who have the Canon drop-in variable ND mount. And a lot of people are probably like us in that you have the thing because it was a sensible, quick and easy solution. Lets you put an EF lens on the front of your RF mount camera, has an ND in it. Cool, what could be better? Yeah. And then you use the ND and you look at the footage and you throw it in the junk drawer and you never touch it again in a lot of cases, because the Canon ND sadly is below par. What we're looking at right here is an electronic version of that. So effectively, all we're doing is slotting into that familiar Canon drop-in slot. And other people have done this with optical filters, just improved versions of Canon's idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, this uses a liquid crystal ND and is electronically controllable and remote controllable from an iOS device as well. And yeah, there are obviously, as we've discussed at length, there are compromises with this relative to the high end of using pure optical filters.
Absolutely.
You want to swap to a clear, you've got to swap the cartridge out. It's not the biggest deal ever, if you're in the scenario where that's okay. The upsides, it's going to be very cheap. It's going to be perfectly effective for a lot of scenarios. It'll let you have infinitely variable ND between 2 and 7 stops. It's a simple, straightforward solution that is a case of us, and possibly me to some extent, being able to dial it back a bit and go, you know what, sometimes good enough is good enough. Let's make good enough more convenient, more usable, and more effective, because I know what Canon were shooting for with that variable ND. They wanted a good enough solution, but it was just a compromise too far in terms of usability and quality. So LC Tech in Sweden, we've known since back in 2019, and they're the technology partner behind the glass that's going to be inside this device.
Since 2016?
2019.
Oh, 2019.
Yeah.
Wow, so it's still a long time ago.
It is, yeah. So, I mean, we've been looking at their product for some time. They've been developing, iterating on it. And we've always been interested because obviously, manufacturers include LCD NDs inside of cameras, but in a lot of cases, what they're having to do is compensate for the deficiencies of the glass by manipulating the image in camera.
Yeah.
So when you have a third-party device and it can't interact with the camera, say, now I'm going to ND whatever, I'm going to adjust all of the image settings and change the color to balance it.
Exactly, yeah. Just out of interest.
It's a different ball game.
What are some of the big cameras on the market that use that LCD?
Well, at the cinema scale, it's not really something that happens.
Right.
Your Sony FS series cameras, have fantastic LCD-based NDs, and it's at that scale that people are familiar with it.
Yeah.
There have been third-party products that do this in the past with varying degrees of success. And the most obvious first-party product that's similar to this is Red's original motion mount, which was based on a similar kind of technology. It was pretty revolutionary, but it lacked the obvious, I need to quickly swap to clear. And it was also always fighting with the alterations to color. It was a very complex thing to characterize because the color shifted dramatically as the ND changed.
Yeah.
And so the camera needed to dynamically account for that. And that's not without compromise. Even with a camera like a Red that has very high bit depth imagery and is able to let you manipulate the image a lot, you're still compromising when you say, sorry, the filter's made everything really magenta, we're going to have to dial that back. It's not as simple as just forgetting that that ever happened.
Yes.
What you need is a filter that has no appreciable color shift and has very minimized things like color vignetting that you can get with LCD NDs. Because of the way it works, there's polarization involved and there are compromises with that. And there are certain things about it which will mean it's not for everything. But yeah, what we think LC Tech have been able to come up with now is a liquid crystal based ND filter that is good enough for us to say, yeah, that's a good enough product. It's not the ultimate solution in terms of answering every quality question, but it is going to be very cost effective and very high quality. Yeah. And yeah, we wanted to get in with that. The thing that actually drove this was that the R&D that the LC Tech team have been doing has parallels with the diffusion filter designs that we've came up with for OLPFs in the past.
Okay.
So the next step beyond this, which will come in due course as well, is we will be able to do diffusion with electronic control of the strength of the diffusion in a cartridge exactly like this.
That's just kind of mind-bending idea for me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a really interesting concept. It's effectively very much the same tech as the liquid crystal ND. It's just that the liquid crystals are arranged in a diffusion pattern on the glass that's predefined, and you then change their opacity to alter the strength of the effect.
Yes.
The place where we've got expertise is around what that pattern is, how it is laid out, what it does in order to produce the effect needed. And obviously, as that version of the product comes to market during the early part of next year, we'll be keeping a really close line of communication with the guys at LC Tech to refine that and get what we hope is a really good diffusion product as well.
That's really interesting.
Just to give a sense of scale, on my little show and tell table here, if anybody's not familiar, this is the kind of size that we're talking about. So if you have one of the drop-in filters for the Canon RF EF drop-in mount, this is the sort of scale that we're talking about. It's very small.
This is Canon's own, isn't it?
And this is Canon, this is just a clear drop-in filter that replaces their variable ND filter, which I've played with before when we were talking about polarization issues.
And we're not making the mount.
In this instance, this will work in the mount. What we will do, because it's totally in our wheelhouse, is produce a higher quality version of the mount, which is really just an iteration on our revolver mount, so that you can have locking EF or PL. The other alternative that we will be very likely producing as well is an embodiment of that same LCD tech into a revolver cartridge, so that you can flick between clear and ND, take the cartridge out, replace it with something else. There will be some iterations and versions. What's going to come first is what you've seen in the renders is effectively something scarcely any bigger than this, which can be bought on its own, dropped into a mount you've very likely got hiding in a drawer somewhere, and on you go. Just to explain the presence of this little dude on the table as well, we were talking about the scale of things. The LCD on this little board that I've got here, it's an OLED actually, I beg your pardon. That's actually very likely the part that we'll use, and it was kind of interesting just to have a look at the at the scale that it's possible to build stuff on here. It's not even the smallest OLED that's available. This is a 0.49 inch OLED display, and they go down to the 0.3 of an inch. But I just thought that was it's a little defunct project that we happened to use that screen on before.
That board isn't related to.
That's not entirely related. No, this is just exactly. No, this is just a dev board that we had for a different project. It's effectively just doing Arduino, but squeezed a little bit. That is an as yet unofficially named, unofficially announced, apart from now, product. We are aiming to move really fast on it because we have at this point got all of the technological aspect under our belt. We're effectively at this point, we're about packaging the electronics and packaging the physical side of things, and that's what we're deeply engaged on right at this moment.
Absolutely. What's really nice to see from my point of view at the renders is the fact that it is a very low cost product compared to our others, but it looks build quality wise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll just jump back to what we were looking at there. Although we're targeting a much lower price point than things like Strata Electro and where we've been in the past with the Strata PLND, for example, the stuff I won't give up for our products is nice, solid, milled, CNC'd metal housings. I don't want to be pushing plasticky buttons and rotating awkward little knobs. We have CNC milled. There's a proper ball bearing race for the control wheel, which is
very satisfying.
It's satisfying overkill. But the thing is, although we want to hit a really good price point for this, I'm not in the Ford mindset or the mega mass production mindset of saying, well, we could save 3 cents if we didn't have that particular screw in that particular place. In the scheme of things, spending $1 for a ball bearing and making the control wheel feel really reliable and really nice, it's really important for this kind of product, I think.
Yeah. Because user experience-wise, it equals our other products.
Yes, exactly. I'm not going to compromise that stuff. I do want this to hit a broader market, and it's not built with the same uncompromising principles. We are saying, this is a horses for courses thing. It will work great for the scenario that you choose it for.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to compromise on the build quality and the way that we, on the aesthetics as well. We want it to fit with the brand, fit with our principles in that respect. I'm really excited about that. I'd love to know what people think the name is going to be. I'm deliberately not saying anything. Whether that
not ND Mux ND face or let's not do a public vote.
Yeah, exactly. That never goes well on the internet, does it? It's something that we'll be talking about more as we go. It's the beginning of an alternate line of product, really, that just fleshes out what we're able to offer. Like I say, it's just a horses for courses thing. Sometimes you need speed, you need simplicity, and you need a sensible price and decent quality and reliability. And this will fit into that niche. Like I say, I love to go on about how electronic ND has issues of various kinds. Absolutely, it does. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a place. And in the past,
long as the user understands.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the past, I've always been really open about saying, if that is what you need, certain other people make other things. You should buy the other person's product if that's what they make. But you know what? We'll do it better. That's the other part. I want to say we will do it better. We will make this really nice and make it really well. Hopefully that means that now when we're looking at, oh, well, maybe you need a different compromise, we can point to another KipperTie product. And even at that lower price point, be able to give people the solid quality and the solid customer service and backup and all the other stuff that that people ought to expect.
Absolutely, yeah. Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's all good fun. Again, if anybody has questions and comments, I will attempt to answer them. We'll take a look down in the comments on the YouTube channel and see what's going on. Of course, we'll be keeping you up to date further as we go along, and I want to really increase the openness that we have about stuff. It is so much more, it's a weight off effectively to be open about what might cause a delay, in the same way that it's exciting to be open about what's new and interesting. So it's the ups and downs of running a business where you create things. We've got a little bit of each on today's stream. We'll keep an eye on the comments, see what you guys have to say, and join us again in a couple of weeks' time when we'll be on for another Unfiltered live stream.